Hello family. Welcome to Morales Stories, your home for gripping African tales. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Now sit back and enjoy the drama. Lina's bare feet felt the rough pavement beneath her as she pressed her face against the cold glass of a bakery window. The warm, golden light spilling from inside revealed rows of freshly baked bread, their crusts gleaming. Her stomach clenched painfully with hunger. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. Her once vibrant hoodie now hung limp and gray, several sizes too large, draping her frail frame like a tattered blanket. Her hair was knotted, her skin bearing the dust of city streets, and her eyes burned with exhaustion. Everyone around her moved with purpose, commuters rushing to work, street vendors hawking wares, cars honking, but she felt invisible, a ghost in the bustling metropolis. She used to be celebrated. When Lina was 15, she was Princess Serafina of Elveria, a quiet, neutral European kingdom nestled between rolling hills and ancient forests. She lived in a marble palace with spires that glinted in the sunlight, its gardens a tapestry of lavender and white roses. Every morning, her loyal maid Greta brought her tea and freshly baked pastries. Her days were filled with lessons in history, etiquette, and diplomacy. She imagined ruling one day, arranging state dinners, and seeing her mother's proud smile at every ceremony. But on her 15th birthday, that life was torn away. A brutal coup erupted. Soldiers smashed down the palace doors, shouting orders, their armor clanging against marble floors. Guards fell, one by one, until Greta grabbed Lina's trembling hand. With whispers choked by fear, she pressed a forged passport into her palm and slid a delicate silver pendant around her neck, its crest glinting in torchlight. "You must go," Greta had whispered, voice trembling. "Stay hidden. Be safe. Remember who you are." The blade that ended Greta's life dripped crimson onto polished floors. In darkness and confusion, Lina fled through secret passages and escaped under the cover of night. That night, she journeyed across borders, through crowded refugee camps, along train tracks, and across lonely forests, until she finally reached this sprawling city. She arrived with nothing but the pendant hidden beneath her clothes. 3 years later, she wandered its streets, a phantom among millions. She scavenged for food, slept on benches, and hid in abandoned stairwells. Hunger was a constant companion, gnawing at her resolve. The pendant was her only link to the world she'd lost. Engraved with a graceful crown and the word Elveria, it felt like a lifeline. The morning chill seeped through the cracks in the brick buildings as Lina descended from her makeshift hideout, an abandoned stairwell in a dilapidated apartment complex. The once vibrant murals of birds and flowers on the walls were now faded and chipped. Newspapers lay strewn across the floor, providing little comfort. She slipped through a narrow alley behind the bakery, hoping to find discarded pastries or a kind stranger's spare change. But all she found was a discarded soda can and a scrap of cardboard. She used it to shield herself from the wind as she moved toward the main street. Her stomach growled. She pressed her face against the cold glass again, watching a baker slide a loaf from the oven. The aroma of warm bread made her dizzy. She closed her eyes, fighting back tears. She remembered sitting at a high table in her childhood home, surrounded by courtiers, as she sampled fresh pastries prepared by palace chefs. Those days felt like a dream, so distant, so impossible. She opened her eyes and placed a trembling hand on the glass. Behind her, footsteps echoed. A suited man brushed past without apology, bumping her shoulder. Lina stumbled, recovering her balance. The city was full of men like him, wealthy, self-absorbed, trudging past anyone who didn't fit into their world. She squeezed her fists, burying her nails into her palms to stop them from trembling. She retreated down the alley, her hoodie dragging on the wet pavement. She spotted a clothing vendor setting up for the day, knitted scarves and hats, second-hand coats hung on rusted racks. His face was kind, lined with soot and wrinkles. She approached hesitantly, knowing she looked like a beggar. The vendor watched her approach and offered a small, stale roll without charge, saying, "You look hungry." Lina accepted, biting into it gratefully. The bread was stale, but she swallowed it eagerly. Her eyes filled with tears as warmth spread through her from her stomach outward. The vendor looked away, busying himself, but Lina mouthed a silent, "Thank you." It was then that she noticed a crumpled help wanted sign leaning against a lamppost. Help wanted, diner needed, no experience required. Her pulse quickened. She had served tea to kings, surely she could handle a diner. But her tattered clothes and filthy appearance told a different story. She folded the sign gently and slipped it into her jacket pocket. With renewed determination, she followed the vendor's gaze down the street to a neon-lit diner called Lucky Charms. Its formica tables and flickering diner lights felt like a different world, one she yearned to belong to, even just for a shift. Lina entered the diner, the bell above the door jingling. The aroma of coffee and sizzling bacon hit her senses. She approached the counter where a burly man in a stained apron wiped a greasy mug. She swallowed hard. I saw the help wanted sign outside," she said, voice quivering. The man glanced at her ragged appearance, then at the sign tacked on the wall. He sighed. "You look young, 18? Maybe? Sit there." He pointed to a small table by the jukebox. "Fill this out." He slid a clipboard with a pencil over the table. Lina sank into the vinyl seat, her trembling hands filling in her name, Lina Harper, age 18, no previous job experience. She pressed the pen down, biting her lip with determination. When she finished, she handed it back. The man looked it over, his bushy eyebrows furrowing. "Show up tomorrow at 6 a.m. "Can you do that?" he asked, tone clipped. "Mopping floors, washing dishes, refilling coffee. That's it." Lina's heart soared. "Yes, sir," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. She left the diner with her heart pounding. Tomorrow she would step onto a new stage, one where she could prove her worth. She clutched the cold metal of the pendant under her shirt and whispered, "I can do this." That evening she returned to her stairwell hideout. Greta's words echoed in her mind, "Never take this off." She held the pendant close to her heart, letting the tiny weight warm her skin. She wrapped herself in a thin blanket and curled into a ball. She closed her eyes, breathing in the scent of damp concrete and leftover bus exhaust, and let sleep take her. In her dreams, she saw the marble halls of her palace and heard distant voices chanting her name, "Serafina, Serafina." When morning came, she would stand before the world again, no longer just a shadow on the streets, but perhaps, one day, something more. Tomorrow, everything could change for her destiny. Fate had not abandoned her yet. The city's neon glow had faded into morning gray when Cairo slipped into a narrow back alley, his black hoodie drawn low over his eyes. Though the cacophony of traffic and pedestrians surged beyond, he felt as though he moved through another world entirely, one where no one recognized him as the only son of Malcolm Stone, the tech billionaire whose empire spanned continents. Cairo preferred this borrowed anonymity. It was the only place he felt alive. He rounded a curb and nearly stumbled over a huddled figure. Lina, though he didn't yet know her name, sat shivering on the damp pavement. Her oversized hoodie, several sizes too large, did little to warm her. Her legs were drawn to her chest, her face was pale, lips tinged blue. An empty coffee cup lay at her feet, evidence of her desperate search for warmth. Hunger and exhaustion were etched into every line of her slender frame. Without hesitation, Cairo knelt beside her. "Hey, you okay?" he asked, voice low and gentle. Lina's eyes fluttered open. She looked up, confusion and fear battling in her gaze. I'm fine," she croaked, though the tremor in her voice gave her away. He reached into his backpack and pulled out a protein bar and a bottle of water. The wrapper crinkled loudly in the stillness. "Take this," he said, pressing the bar into her trembling hands. "You need it." Tears filled her eyes as she unwrapped the bar and devoured it, each bite consumed with fierce urgency. She drained half the water before speaking. "Thank you," she whispered, voice hoarse. He lifted her to her feet and draped his jacket around her shoulders. It smelled faintly of his cologne, fresh and cool. "You're freezing. Come on, I know a place you can warm up." She hesitated, glancing down at the grime on her ragged clothes, but then nodded. Slowly, they moved through twisting alleys until they reached a gray, peeling door set into an aging brick building. Cairo pressed a hidden button, and the door clicked open. Inside, a narrow stairwell led up to a fifth-floor apartment. He flicked on a light, revealing threadbare carpets and plain walls. A small space heater sat in the corner, humming softly. Lina sank onto a worn couch as he turned the heater's dial. "I'm Cairo," he said, watching her carefully. "You." Her throat constricted. "Lina," she whispered. She looked away quickly, pulling the jacket tighter around her. "I don't usually talk to strangers." He knelt beside her, removing a packet of antiseptic wipes from his bag. "That's okay. You can trust me, Lina." Gently, he cleaned her scraped elbow, wincing as she flinched. "You've been out here a while, haven't you?" She nodded, eyes downcast. "Long enough." He studied her, noticing the faint gleam of a silver pendant beneath her shirt. He frowned. "Where did you get that?" he asked softly. Her eyes widened. She pulled her hand away, pressing the pendant to her chest. "It's nothing. Just a keepsake." He hesitated, then turned his attention to stacking food containers at the small kitchenette. "Eat this," he said, placing a sandwich and fruit on a plate. She hesitated only a moment before taking a bite. With each swallow, her tense muscles relaxed slightly. He watched her, silent, as voices of concern and curiosity swirled in his mind. "What happened to you?" he asked finally, avoiding her gaze. Lina swallowed hard, finishing her sandwich before responding. "I don't want to talk about it." Her voice cracked, but she forced it steady. Cairo nodded. "You need rest." He retrieved a threadbare blanket from the couch and draped it over her legs. She closed her eyes, exhaustion pulling her under. Cairo stayed by her side until her breathing evened, then quietly slipped out. The next morning, dawn filtered weakly through grimy windows. Cairo brewed coffee and scrambled eggs, setting a small tray on the coffee table with a cup of steaming tea. Lina awoke slowly, blinking at the unfamiliar surroundings. "What is that smell?" she asked, voice hoarse. "Coffee and eggs," he replied. "You need strength." She sniffed carefully, then took a hesitant bite. Her eyes widened at the taste of real food, eggs fluffy and seasoned, toast warm and crispy. Gratitude flickered in her gaze. Over breakfast, she noticed a black hoodie draped over a chair. It smelled clean, a stark contrast to her own clothes. "Why help me?" she asked, staring at Cairo. He met her gaze evenly. "No one deserves to be ignored," he said simply. "I was walking by and saw you. I couldn't leave you like that." She studied him for a moment. He seemed too young to be so kind, hair close-cropped, eyes bright but wearied by something deeper. She shifted the pendant beneath her shirt and took a sip of tea. "You risk a lot helping me," she said softly. Cairo shrugged. "My father's men are always watching. But I'd rather risk his wrath than watch someone suffer." He tapped a phone on the table. "We need to find you a safe place. Today." She nodded, silence heavy between them. She swallowed, then asked, "What's your last name?" He hesitated briefly. "Stone." Recognition flared in Lina's eyes. Cairo Stone, the billionaire's son. His cheeks pinked. "Yeah. But here, that means nothing." He reached out, carefully meeting her gaze. "Tomorrow, I'll bring clothes and take you to a shelter. You'll be safe." Tears pricked her eyes. "I owe you everything." He gave a small smile. "You don't owe me. Just be careful with that." He nodded to the pendant nestled against her chest. Her fingers tightened around it. "Anyone who recognizes that will know who you are." She looked away, pain flashing across her features. "I'm not who I used to be." He leaned forward. "What happened?" Lina locked eyes with him. She drew a shaky breath, then whispered, "They killed my family. I escaped, with only this." She pressed the pendant to his palm. His eyes widened as he recognized the elaborate crest. "Princess Serafina," he said, voice barely a whisper. Tears spilled down Lina's cheeks. She sank back against the couch. "They murdered my mother and father and erased my name." Cairo's heart pounded. He gently squeezed her hand. "You're safe tonight. I promise." Later that day, he led her to a non-profit shelter. A stern matron eyed them as they entered. "You must be Cairo Stone," she said. He handed her a slip of paper. "I'll cover her bed for 2 weeks." The matron nodded. "Room 7. No leaving after dark. Lights out at 10. She ushered Lina into a narrow corridor lined with bunk beds. Lina hugged her bag, clutching the pendant. When they emerged, the heavy door clanged shut behind them. Cairo exhaled. "She'll be safe," he said. Lina looked up at him, tears glistening. I thank you." He forced a smile. "I'll bring you clothes tonight." She nodded, voice barely audible. "I don't know how to repay you." He shook his head. "Just survive." He walked away as she watched him disappear into the street, hoodie flapping behind him like a dark banner. She opened her hand and stared at the pendant's intricate design. She whispered, "I will." Above, 2 helicopters thundered across the sky, searchlights sweeping the streets below. Lina pulled her hoodie tighter, pressing the pendant to her heart. She lay down on the bunk's thin mattress, listening to the distant thrum of rotors, and closed her eyes. In that moment, she understood that her fight for survival was far from over. The elevator doors rose with a soft chime, revealing a marble-floored foyer bathed in recessed lighting. Cairo led Lina out into a sprawling open space, luxurious, pristine, and almost surreal. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed a panoramic view of the city, skyscrapers bathed in golden afternoon light, traffic a ribbon of motion below. Lina's breath caught. "This is amazing," she whispered, swallowing hard. She felt the dirt under her fingernails itching at the edges of the plush rug. Her tattered hoodie made her feel exposed. Every piece of furniture looked brand new, intentionally placed, sleek black leather couches, a glass coffee table so clear it almost disappeared, and modern art on the walls, abstract strokes of crimson and gold. "It's not mine," Cairo said, voice low. He removed his backpack and slung it onto a mirrored console. "My father rents this place for corporate retreats. I use it when I need to be alone." A graphite gray kitchen island gleamed behind him. A bowl of fresh fruit, a mix of green apples, grapes, and pears, sat at the center. Lina approached it cautiously, her bare feet on polished marble. She picked up a crisp apple, biting into it. Juice trickled down her chin. The taste was shockingly sweet. She closed her eyes, savoring every moment. Cairo watched her, curiosity flickering in his dark eyes. "You look like you've never seen an apple like that," he teased gently. She wiped her mouth and smiled ruefully. "I haven't." He led her down a long hallway to a door. "Here's the bathroom." He opened it. Inside, white marble floors and walls gleamed. A deep soaking tub stood beside a rainfall shower. Soft cotton towels were neatly folded on a shelf. Lina stared in awe. She stepped inside, closing the glass door behind her. Steam hissed as she turned on the shower. As warm water cascaded over her skin, she closed her eyes. The grime that had caked her clothes and settled beneath her nails washed away in swirling foam. She lost herself in the warmth, memories flooding back, glittering chandeliers of her palace, her mother's gentle smile, and Greta's final words echoing in her mind, "Never take this off." She reached down and clutched the silver pendant that had been hidden beneath her clothes. It felt cool in her palm. She used a plush towel to dry herself, wrapping it around her head like a turban to protect her damp hair. She emerged to find Cairo waiting with clean clothes laid out on a marble countertop. A black hoodie, dark jeans, and soft cotton socks. The fabric felt foreign but comfortable. She dressed, glancing at her reflection in a wall-length mirror. She no longer resembled the starving girl from the alley. She was clean, nearly presentable, though the haunted look in her eyes remained. Cairo led her to the guest room, a minimalistic sanctuary of white linens and soft pillows. A small bedside lamp cast a warm glow. Lina sank onto the bed, clutching her pendant. Cairo lingered, his face inches from hers in the soft lamplight. "You're safe," he whispered. "For now." She met his gaze, fear and gratitude swirling in her eyes. Her fingertips trembled over the pendant's engraving, a crowned shield with swirling vines. "Why help me? You barely know me." His eyes darkened with intensity. I saw the fear in your eyes. I couldn't walk away. He paused, swallowing. And because I think you deserve a chance. She looked away, tears pricking her lashes. I'm not who you think I am. He blinked, surprised. And who am I to think you are? She glared at him, gathering courage. I was a princess. Princess Serafina of Elveria. They killed my family, my kingdom. I escaped with nothing but this pendant. She held it up, letting the light catch its edges. Cairo's breath caught. He had seen that crest in history books, dusty tomes in his childhood library. Serafina, he repeated. They said you died in the coup. She pressed her palms to her face. They tried. They almost succeeded. She exhaled shakily. I don't want that life anymore. I just want peace. He studied her, chest tightening. You have other choices. He hesitated, then took her hand. You could go back, claim your crown, and show the world who you really are. His voice wavered with intensity. She closed her eyes, memories rushing in, marble floors slick with blood, the sound of her mother's final breath, Greta's carved knife sliding into granite. She shook her head. I can't trust them. They will kill me if I return. Cairo exhaled, running a hand through his hair. I'll protect you. She looked at him, vulnerability and uncertainty warring in her eyes. I don't know how. He gently squeezed her hand. Trust me. Over the next hours, Lina wandered the penthouse, taking in every detail. She discovered a small study with a massive oak desk and leather-bound books lining shelves. She opened one at random, volumes of Elverian history, photographed maps, and biographies of medieval kings. She ran her fingers over a portrait of a young Queen Imelda, her grandmother, standing beside a tall, mustached king. Lina felt a pang of lost lineage. In the living room, a square-shaped digital screen dominated one wall. Cairo used it for gaming tournaments when he visited, but tonight it was off, the black screen reflecting her face. She reached out, touching it gently as though it were a relic. A sudden beep startled her. Cairo had powered it on. What's this? She asked. He conjured a remote and flipped through folders, family photos, vacation snapshots, and videos of board meetings. He paused on a hidden file labeled Serafina. His fingers trembled as he clicked it open. A grainy news clip played, a young girl in royal robes waving from a balcony, smiling at cheering crowds. Lina's breath caught. That was her. He muted the volume. She sank onto the plush rug, eyes fixed on the flickering images. That's me, she whispered, when I still believed in a future. Cairo knelt beside her. I'm sorry. His voice was gentle. I should have told you sooner. She shook her head. No. It's okay. She reached for the remote and shut off the screen. Darkness enveloped them. Cairo stood, pulling her to her feet. Come, he said softly, leading her back to the bedroom. She clutched her pendant, the cold metal grounding her. That night, Lina lay under crisp white sheets, the city's lights glittering through the windows. She pressed her hand to the pendant and whispered, I'm still Serafina. She closed her eyes, breathing in the sterile luxury of the penthouse. She thought of her former life, silk gowns, grand banquets, and royal protocol, and then of the filthy alley where she nearly froze to death. She no longer recognized herself. Downstairs, Cairo turned off the lights, leaving the faint glow of street lamps to filter into the room. He lingered in the doorway for a moment, watching her chest rise and fall, the pendant peeking from her neckline. He struggled with conflicting emotions, protectiveness, a longing to shield her, and the nagging thought that her destiny was tied to something greater than either of them. The next morning, sunlight slanted through the windows, casting patterns on the marble floors. Cairo slipped away before Lina awoke, leaving a tray of fresh fruit, granola, and yogurt on the kitchen island. When she prowled downstairs, she found the food laid out, as well as a laptop on the countertop. On its screen lay open tabs, instructions for opening a bank account under an alias, applications for driver's licenses, and email drafts to embassies in Elveria, inquiring about political asylum. Her breath caught. She sat at the counter, scrolling through the documents. Cairo had anticipated everything. He believed in her enough to prepare these steps. Her chest tightened with gratitude and fear. She fingered the pendant's chain, wondering if she was bribing destiny by staying here. Cairo reappeared carrying 2 steaming cups of coffee. He settled on a bar stool beside her. "I found these," he said, nodding to the papers. "If you want to remain hidden, these will help." She reached out, touching his arm. "Thank you," she whispered, eyes glistening. He gave a small, sad smile. "You deserve a choice." She exhaled, leaning back. "So what now?" He paused, tracing a circle on the countertop. "Tonight, I'll take you to a remote safe house. We can talk about next steps." She nodded, though every nerve in her body ached with uncertainty. The penthouse, for all its beauty, felt like a gilded cage. She needed to decide, hide forever or return to reclaim what was hers. As the day wore on, she wandered the penthouse one last time. She opened the front door and took a deep breath of cold air. The city's hum felt different now, less ominous, more like a promise. She tucked the laptop and papers into her backpack, then sat on the edge of the bed. She pressed the pendant to her lips, whispering, "Mother, Father, I refuse to be forgotten." Downstairs, Cairo watched from the window as helicopters buzzed overhead, searchlights piercing neighborhoods. Elverian agents, perhaps, or private security hired by unknown enemies. Lina rose from the bed, brushing tears from her cheeks, and slipped on her black hoodie, Cairo's hoodie, from the day before. It fit snugly now, like armor. She shouldered her backpack and made her way to the door. Cairo joined her in the foyer, breathing catching at the sight of her resolve. He handed her a pair of sunglasses. "Wear these," he said. "They'll help." She nodded, donning them. "I'm ready." As they left the penthouse, Lina glanced back at the glass walls reflecting the city she had only just begun to understand. The penthouse had been a fragile sanctuary, but now it was a threshold. Outside, the morning sun revealed a world that could still be hers if she dared to reclaim it. They stepped into the elevator. As the doors closed, Lina pressed her hand to her chest, feeling the pendant's cool weight against her skin. "Let's get started," she said, voice firm. Cairo nodded, determination in his gaze. The penthouse receded behind them, the threshold between her past and her future. Lina perched on the edge of her bunk bed in a small safe house on the outskirts of the city. The fan overhead whirred faintly, stirring the stale air. The room was sparse: a single bed, a narrow dresser, and a small desk piled with documents. Outside, tall hedges obscured the world, but Lina felt exposed, like the walls could not contain the turmoil within her. Cairo sat opposite her at the small desk, his laptop open. He scrolled through the screen, eyes narrowing as he read news articles and social media posts. "Your face might be all over the internet in 20 minutes, he said quietly. She held the silver pendant, its polished surface glinting in the lamplight. "Show me." He clicked between tabs. A news website flashed a photo of her from the penthouse. Someone in a helicopter had snapped the image. Beneath it, a headline read, "Breaking, Missing Princess Serafina of Elveria Spotted in City Penthouse." The article detailed a rumored return. After 3 years in hiding, Princess Serafina has allegedly been discovered by a mysterious benefactor, son of tech mogul Malcolm Stone. Government officials have confirmed international search parties are on the ground. Any information is requested. Comments and reactions scrolled endlessly: outrage, disbelief, conspiracy theories. Some users demanded proof. Others shared old royal photographs, claiming this girl was an imposter. Lina's stomach clenched. She had hoped to stay hidden, to slowly slip into obscurity. Now the world had a front-row seat to her return. She pressed her fingers to the pendant's chain, feeling the cool weight against her palm. Tears threatened to spill, but she blinked them back. She had to be strong. Cairo closed the laptop, face set with resolve. They'll be here any minute. Elverian agents. Private security contractors. News crews. She swallowed. "What do we do?" He stood and paced, hair falling into his eyes. "We have 3 options. 1. We refund the plane ticket I bought for you to fly to asylum in another country. 2. You surrender yourself to the Elverian embassy and claim your throne. 3. You hide deeper, forever changing your identity and disappearing again. She pressed her eyes shut. I'm not a child anymore. I can't just run. He stopped pacing and faced her. Then you go back. His voice was gentle but firm. Show them you're alive. Make them understand what happened to you. Reclaim your birthright. Lina shook her head, panic flaring. They'll kill me. He knelt beside her. I won't let that happen. I'll protect you. She looked away, tears slipping down her cheeks. I can't let you risk everything for me. He held her gaze. You saved me in ways you don't even know. Let me repay you. Her shoulders slumped. She had seen the world's cruelty in the streets, how quickly people turned on a person when fear and curiosity mingled. But she also felt a flicker of defiance. She refused to be a pawn. Fine, she whispered hoarsely. Go back. But not for the throne. Cairo's brow furrowed. Then for what? She took a shaky breath. To expose the truth. To show Elveria that their new government, whoever is in power, cannot bury the past and claim legitimacy. My mother and father did everything for this kingdom. I will not let my people be complacent. His face softened. Then we do it together. That afternoon, Cairo drove them to a discreet hangar where a small private jet waited. Inside, the cabin was stark yet comfortable. 2 plush leather chairs facing a single seat across a glossy wood-finish table. He held a government-issued passport and visa application forms for Lina. She stared at the pages, her heart pounding. What's your new name? He asked, handing her a pen. She traced her finger over the passport page. Isabel Harper? She offered, choosing a name that echoed part of her real identity but concealed the princess. He smiled, gently placing a hand on hers. Isabel Harper, he repeated. It suits you. They taxied down the runway and soared above the city, leaving skyscrapers and highways behind. The world below shrank beneath the clouds. Lina stared out the window as the patchwork of buildings and streets became an endless ocean of gray. Fear and exhilaration warred within her. Cairo poured her a glass of sparkling water. This is the first step, he said. We'll land in a neutral country, arrange asylum. Then you can send a public statement, explaining everything if you choose. She bit her lip, clutching the pendant beneath her shirt. I have to be certain. He nodded. Whatever you decide, I'll stand by you. In the seat across from her, he pulled out a small camera and photographed the pendant. I need to document this, he said. It's proof, hard evidence that you're the rightful heir. She exhaled, tears filling her eyes as he focused on the pendant's intricate crest. The camera flashed softly. The sound triggered something inside her, a raw recognition that her identity could tilt the world's perception. By late afternoon, the jet descended over a lush, green landscape. Cairo and Lina disembarked into a small airport terminal. Agents in dark suits and sunglasses murmured into earpieces as they stepped onto the tarmac. Lina's heart thundered. Elverian officials. Cairo placed a protective arm around her waist as they moved toward the waiting black SUVs. One agent, tall and stern-faced, approached. He flashed a government badge. Princess Serafina? He asked. She lifted her chin, eyes fierce. I am, she replied steadily, but not as you remember me. The agent's eyes widened as he saw the pendant she held. He offered a curt nod. Welcome home, Your Highness. Cairo squeezed her hand, nodding. The world seemed to hold its breath. Flashbulbs popped in the distance, photojournalists capturing the moment. Lina squared her shoulders and stepped past the agent, toward the limo awaiting her. A cluster of reporters shouted questions. Princess, what do you want to say to your people? Are you safe? Will you reclaim your throne? Lina raised her hand, silencing the crowd. Her voice rang out, calm and determined. I am Serafina of Elveria. My family was murdered in a coup that claimed my life. I was hidden by loyalists who believed in my right to lead. Today, I return not to rule with a crown and scepter, but to ensure justice for my people. I will speak truth to power. I will restore hope to those who believed I was lost. Together, we will build a future rooted in transparency and compassion. The microphones stopped whirring as the world processed her words. Then thunderous applause and cheers erupted. She mounted the limo steps, facing Cairo. He offered a tender smile that steadied her. As the limo doors closed, Lina turned her gaze to the city skyline. Memories of the alley, the safe house, and that cramped shelter flickered in her mind. They were ghosts now, remnants of a life she had outgrown. She pressed the pendant to her heart and exhaled. In that moment, she realized she was not just a princess, nor merely a refugee. She was a queen by right and by choice. Beside her, Cairo closed his eyes, relief flooding his expression. He had given her a chance at truth. And as the limo carried Serafina toward her palace, the world watched, enraptured, as the princess who vanished from history reclaimed her place in the light. Lina stood on the balcony of the royal palace, the wind tugging at her hair as she gazed across the sprawling courtyard below. The marble columns, once stained with blood and smoke, now gleamed in the late afternoon sun. Thousands of Elverians had gathered, their cheers and tears echoing off the stone walls. Banners fluttered overhead, one reading, "Welcome home, Serafina," and another bearing her family's crest. Beside her, Cairo watched from the shadows, arms crossed, face unreadable. He had accompanied her under the guise of an advisor and friend, and now he stood as witness to the world's reaction. Lina pressed her fingers to the cold marble railing, letting the noise wash over her. She wore a simple gown of royal blue silk, the color of the Elverian flag, no crown, no jewels. She had pledged to start anew with humility, and her subjects seemed to appreciate the gesture. The robed High Chancellor approached her, bowing low. "Your Majesty," he said, voice trembling. "We are honored to have you back." She inclined her head. "Thank you, Chancellor." He stepped back, and the palace gates opened. A procession of armored guards and palace staff escorted her to the grand hall. Lina descended the marble steps, each footfall echoing through the courtyard. She remembered standing here as a child, dancing in her mother's arms on festival days, waving at her people from a balcony festooned with flowers. Pain threatened to choke her, but she inhaled deeply, focusing on the justice she had come to pursue. Inside the grand hall, courtiers and dignitaries lined the galleries. Lina's political rivals, many of whom had seized power after the coup, watched her warily from behind jeweled fans and glossy veneers. Some whispered among themselves, their eyes narrowed with resentment. At the center of the hall, a raised dais held an ornately carved throne. Servants in white gloves swarmed around it, polishing the armrests and adjusting draperies. A hush fell as the palace herald, dressed in crimson and gold, announced, "Her Highness, Princess Ser." Lina raised a hand. "I do not stand here as royalty seeking power," she said, voice ringing clear in the vaulted chamber. "I stand here as a survivor seeking truth and justice." A ripple of confusion passed through the gallery. Lina continued, "My family was murdered, our palace besieged, and I was forced into hiding. 6 months ago, I returned in secret. Now, I return openly, but not to reclaim a throne by birth. I return to expose the corruption that toppled our kingdom and to hold accountable those who profited from our downfall." The murmurs grew louder, shock, excitement, and anger. She took a deep breath. "Beginning tomorrow, I will tour the nation's archives, the royal records, and the financial accounts of those in power. Throughout my journey, I will appoint honest men and women to positions of authority. I will not rest until every criminal who sullied my family's name is brought to justice." Some courtiers gasped. Others exchanged uneasy glances. The once powerful Regent Council members looked pale. Lina's proclamation was a direct challenge to the regime that had thrived on lies. Suddenly, a deep, authoritative voice thundered through the chamber. "Princess Serafina, I present to you the new election results, unhindered by your righteous presence." Cairo's brow furrowed. Lina recognized the voice, Lord Armin Hartnell, a former ally of her late father's inner circle who had betrayed them when greed outweighed loyalty. His uniform gleamed, and his chest was bristling with medals he had never earned. He stepped forward, holding a scroll on crimson ribbon. He offered it to Lina with a mocking bow. She accepted it without breaking eye contact. Kneeling before her, he said, "You have the floor, Your Highness." She took the scroll and unfurled it, scanning the names of elected ministers. Some were loyal to her cause, names she recognized from childhood. Others were hawkish opportunists who had staked their claim in the vacuum after the coup. She cleared her throat. "These results will stand for now," she announced, voice steady. "But I reserve the right to replace anyone who has lied under oath or colluded with foreign interests against Elveria." A ripple of applause followed, though Hartnell's forced smile betrayed his disdain. Lina folded the scroll and motioned to Cairo. "Bring forth the archive's records," she commanded. 2 robes glided forward, carrying stacks of ledgers and parchment. Lina walked between them, glancing at the faded ink and dusty shelves. She recognized the seal on one volume, Elveria, Treasury Records, 2023. She ran a finger down the page, her heart hammering. "Open the ledger for Maith Day," she said. A clerk scrambled to comply. Lina read aloud, "Earned revenue, 12 million crowns. Allocated to Royal Guard." Then a ledger margin note in a stranger's handwriting, "Funds diverted, 5 million to mercenaries of Armin Hartnell." A collective gasp echoed through the chamber. Lina's eyes glinted with righteous fire. My father's soldiers, soldiers of Elveria, were promised support, but their uniforms were never delivered. Instead, those funds lined the pockets of Hartnell's mercenaries with foreign allegiances. Hartnell's face darkened. "All rumors and lies." Lina raised a hand, which fell silent. "Prove those rumors a lie." She turned to the archives clerk. Next, Sparrow Treaty correspondence. Pages were passed forward. The parchment revealed a clandestine meeting between Regent Council members and foreign dignitaries, fresh ink still smeared. Lina read a passage. "Armin Hartnell, handshake with Prince Malzahar of Curvania. In exchange for exclusive mining rights, Curvania will provide arms to Hartnell's faction." The room erupted. Courtiers shouted conflicting statements, some denying any connection, others conceding that Hartnell had met with Curvanian envoys. Lina raised her voice over the chaos. "So it is written, so it shall be known." She held up the scrolls. "I will expose each lie and every disgraceful act of treason. I will restore faith in Elveria's institutions. Those of you who sided with those mercenaries, who betrayed our kingdom, will stand accountable." Hartnell lunged forward, fury contorting his face. He seemed ready to draw his sword. But a group of palace guards intervened, stepping between them. Their captain bowed to Lina. "By your orders, Your Highness." Lina's heart pounded. She had expected resistance, but seeing it writ so boldly in the ledger was a searing agony. She closed the ledger, ignoring Hartnell's frantic protests. "This is only the beginning," she said quietly. "I will not rest until every ounce of treachery is unmasked." She turned and strode up the steps to her temporary quarters, leaving a stunned audience behind. Cairo fell into step beside her. "They won't give up without a fight," he said softly. She met his gaze, her eyes steely. "I know. But truth is on our side." She placed her hand over her heart, where the pendant lay beneath her gown. "And truth is stronger than fear." Cairo nodded, pride and tenderness mingling in his eyes. He took her hand, and they walked together down the corridor, partners in a fight that would shape the future of Elveria. Above them, the banners fluttered in the breeze, proclaiming her return. For the first time, Lina felt that her return was more than symbolic. It was a reckoning. Lina rode in a black limousine through the winding streets of Elveria's capital, the silver crest on her pendant still warm against her skin. Beside her, Cairo studied her from the corner of his eye. The city had never looked so alive, streets lined with citizens waving flags, banners fluttering from lampposts proclaiming "Long live Queen Seraphina." Lina's chest tightened with a mixture of pride and dread. She knew she had not yet truly claimed her crown, but the people's faith poured strength into her veins. The limo turned onto a wide boulevard, revealing the Grand Palace's gates. Marble pillars soared toward a pale blue sky, and intricately carved eagles perched atop each column. The courtyard was a sea of crimson and white, soldiers standing in formation, their armor polished to a mirror shine. Lina exhaled, turning to see Hartnell and other council members escorted in by guards. Some wore hoods, others held their heads high in defiance. She felt a pang of pity for those who would pay for their treachery, some she had once called allies. The limo door opened. She stepped onto the marble steps, her gown's train gliding like a ribbon behind her. Cairo followed, slipping into the shadows to remain unseen. Lina mounted the wide stairway, lifting her chin as a hush fell over the assembled crowd. At the top, the High Chancellor awaited her with the royal orb and scepter. He handed her the orb, a globe of crystal, cool and smooth in her palm. The scepter fit snugly in her other hand. Every eye was on her. The High Chancellor spoke. By decree of the Royal Assembly and in recognition of her rightful claim, Serafina, princess no more, shall be crowned Queen of Elveria. He motioned to palace priests who placed a circlet of silver laurels upon her hair. A hush lingered for a heartbeat, then thunderous applause erupted, rolling like waves across the courtyard. Whistles, horns, and drums joined as Elverians celebrated their new queen's return. Lina raised a hand, her voice projecting clearly. People of Elveria, thank you for your unwavering faith. I stand before you not only as your queen but as your servant. Together, we have exposed corruption, reclaimed our truth, and begun rebuilding a kingdom founded on justice, compassion, and transparency. Tears welled in her eyes as the crowd cheered. She scanned familiar faces, farmers whose fields had failed during the coup, merchants whose businesses had been seized, scholars whose libraries had burned. They reached out to her, tears streaming down their cheeks. She approached a young girl in the front row, kneeling to touch her hand. You are the heart of this kingdom, Lina said. Your voice, your hope, guide me forward. The girl's smile and thumbs up brought tears to Lina's eyes. She rose and set her gaze on the west wing of the palace, where once her parents had ruled. My family's legacy will not be written in blood alone, she continued. We will rebuild, we will heal, and we will flourish. A deafening roar of approval followed. Lina's heart swelled. She had expected fear and anger, but instead, she felt an embrace of unity. Through the palace gates, Cairo slipped away, knowing this was her moment. But destiny had other plans. As she prepared to descend the stairs, a horn sounded from the courtyard entrance. Antonio Vega, a foreign diplomat from Curvania, rode in on a white horse, his entourage in flowing robes behind him. A hush fell. He dismounted, an imposing figure with a stern expression. He bowed low. Your Majesty, he announced. I come bearing congratulations, but also warnings. Curvania demands the mining rights previously granted. They threaten to withdraw vital support otherwise. Murmurs of anxiety spread through the crowd. Lina took a steadying breath. Prince Malzahar's agreement was a betrayal of my people's trust, she said firmly. Until Curvania retracts that treaty and publicly apologizes, there can be no partnership. Antonio's face darkened. You defy us at your peril, he said in a low, menacing tone. He remounted his horse and departed, leaving silence in his wake. Lina's jaw clenched, but she refused to be cowed. She nodded to the High Chancellor, who stepped forward. We shall consider your demands, he said with diplomatic poise, though his eyes reflected concern. The celebration resumed, but a murmur of tension lingered. Lina descended the last step and turned to Cairo, who had rejoined her at her side. He placed a hand on her arm. Are you all right? She nodded, but her heart raced. The threat from Curvania was real, and her position, though strengthened by the people's love, was still precarious. She pressed the pendant beneath her gown, feeling its familiar coolness. I'll hold my ground, she said quietly. This kingdom isn't for sale. He watched her with admiration. You are more than just a queen, Serafina. You are a symbol of hope. She shook her head. I'm still learning what it means to lead. He nodded. I'll stand by you. That evening, inside the ornate council chamber, Lina sat at the head of the table, her silver scepter leaning against a carved column. Around her, former members of the Regent Council, now stripped of titles, stood defensively. Agents had escorted them in under guard. Lina took a seat and beckoned the group forward. She held up the orb, its crystal facets catching candlelight. "You betrayed this kingdom," she said, "but you will have a chance to make amends. I will grant each of you a hearing. If you speak the truth and cooperate, your sentences may be commuted." Her gaze swept the room, landing on Hartnell, whose expression flickered with fear. "If you lie, if you conceal your crimes, you will face consequences befitting treason." The former counselors exchanged fearful glances. One, a pallid man named Counselor Rinaldi, spoke first. "Your Majesty, we—" Lina raised her hand to silence him. "No excuses. Only truth." Rinaldi pursed his lips. "I acknowledge my role in the Sparrow Treaty betrayal. I will repay the funds I diverted into Curvanian trusts. I ask the kingdom for forgiveness." His words were measured and remorseful. Next, Lady Vemra, eloquent and icy, stepped forward. "I facilitated communications between Hartnell and Curvania, believing their promises of prosperity. But I did not intend to betray Elveria entirely." She paused. "I will forfeit my holdings and donate to rebuilding public institutions." Lina nodded. "Very well. You will oversee the restoration of schools and libraries." The confessions continued late into the night. Some offered full cooperation, others provided partial truths, hoping to salvage their status. Hartnell remained silent until the end. Lina looked at him, her gaze unwavering. He shifted uncomfortably. Finally he spoke. "I—" Lina raised her scepter. "Go on." He swallowed. "I was paid by Curvania to suppress your claim. They promised me a seat of power once your throne was firmly under their influence." His voice trembled. "But I was afraid to speak until now." Lina's chest tightened. "You stood at a crossroads, and chose tyranny over loyalty." She signaled guards to step forward. "You will be confined until the trials begin. But you have spoken the truth. Your sentence will reflect leniency." He bowed his head. "Thank you." The chamber emptied, leaving Lina and Cairo alone amid flickering candlelight. She exhaled, exhaustion mingling with relief. Cairo rose and crossed to her side. "You handled them with grace." She closed her eyes. "I had to. There's no going back now." He placed a hand on her shoulder. "I'll always be here." She opened her eyes, meeting his. "You're my rock," she said softly. He gave her a gentle smile. "And you are my queen." They stepped onto the moonlit balcony overlooking the palace gardens. Soft fountains tinkled below. The night air was cool, and fireflies hovered among manicured hedges. Lina's gaze turned skyward, stars blinking overhead. She thought of her parents, of Greta's sacrifice, of the people who believed in her heart. "Thank you for coming back," Cairo said, wrapping his arm around her. She rested her head on his shoulder. "Thank you for believing in me." Above them, the silver pendant glinted in the starlight. It was not just a trinket or a memory. It was her living legacy, a beacon of truth in a world that had nearly destroyed her. As she gazed out at the horizon, Lina knew that the journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, foreign threats, and personal doubts. But she also knew that she would never again be invisible. Below, the courtyard remained alive with celebration, but already, preparations were underway to secure the borders, rebuild institutions, and ensure that Elveria would never again fall to conspiracies fueled by greed. Lina pressed her pendant and whispered, "For you, mother and father. For you, Greta." Cairo tightened his embrace. "For Elveria." Together, they turned from the balcony, stepping back toward the glow of candlelight in the palace's interior, ready to face whatever tomorrow would bring. And so ended the night of Seraphina's return. By dawn, the whole kingdom would know their queen had returned not for vengeance, but to forge a new destiny, one born of courage, compassion, and unyielding truth. The end. Love the story? Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and become part of the Morales Stories family. Your support helps us bring more powerful African tales to life. Thanks for watching. We can't wait to share the next one with you. See you soon.